great. The lawnmower just stopped. And I'm outside by the daffodils to talk about a scene in this book. I believe it was on page 147. Much of what did grow, of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, much of what did grow was stinging nettles, coarse thistle, and stinkweed. And this is talking about, barren land. And I was reading it and I was like, wait a second. I know for a fact that stinging nettles are edible. They are a bit difficult to pick if you don't know how. They will sting. That's annoying. But if you do know how, if you're wearing gloves, it's not a problem. And I'm like, thistles, those are edible too, because everybody knows the most famous thistle to be edible is the artichoke. It's a thistle, it's edible. But other types of thistles are edible. And yeah, if you're careful, it's not hard to avoid the spines, the pricklies. And I was like, stinkweed. So I got this book out. This book is one of my favorite books in the whole wide world. And I was like, okay, S, stinkweed. I've lost it again because. And I was like, oh, it's in here. This is, like I said, the Encyclopedia of Edible Plants in North America. So stinkweed's in here. It's edible. It's like, yeah, well, this doesn't sound like the best place to live, but it does sound pretty, you had a pair of gloves and a flock of goats. Sounds like I would live there. So I was thinking about, how would you make a world in early spring that I would be like, how would you describe it with plants that I would be like, not so sure about? And one of the first things that came to mind is one of my favorite flowers, daffodils. Daffodils are so unedible. They are one of the least edible things ever. Nothing about a daffodil is edible. In no stage is a daffodil edible. They're beautiful. Somehow they win being amongst my favorite flowers just because of their beauty. And not they're edible, unlike a lot of things. And then I was thinking, I was like, another common spring flower that unfortunately it's a bit too late in spring for is run across the yard to the dead forsythia bush that is here. And yes, forsythia, I looked them up, they're not in here. It's like, nope. It's run across the dead forsythia and it's not in here. So yeah, if you want to be like, it's spring, it's not a great place to live, forsythia. And another thing that you can totally mention, everybody will know, oh my goodness, that doesn't sound nice. Another super common thing that exists that everybody knows you don't really want to have is hemlock. And hemlock is this plant here. And yeah, it's pretty easy to identify. I don't know if you can tell, it's those red stems. And it grows wild and attaches just about the entire length of this side of the field. It's hemlock. And so if you want to have your characters really go through a place that sounds nasty, just have them ride through a section of hemlock. It's legitimate. It's unpleasant. I mean, it's not really unpleasant. It's just, it implies unpleasantness. And so, yeah, hemlock is like a really easy thing. Admittedly, this is if you're wanting to make it sound truly inhabitable, not just inhospitable. And I'm not sure which Robert Jordan was trying to do, but on the flip side, if you want to make your characters sound like they're riding through a lovely, lovely place, one place to start, if the cars will kindly shut up, is having them ride through a field of violets. There's just, at least where I live, it's definitely a thing, as you may be able to tell. Golly, the sun's blinding and I'm staring right at it, as you may be able to tell. And, yeah, Field of Violets is a great place to start, especially for riding through. Ah, another car. For a slightly less appealing view of the world, like a healing world, what you could do if you're trying to say your world has been through some stuff and it's now recovering. Dandelions and clover are two plants that generally help land regain how it should be. And so they are two things that absolutely, if you want to like say the world's healing, the world's, becoming more fruitful and nice to live in, having your people ride through dandelions and clover is the way to go. Because, yeah, lots of plant details that I'm sure you can look up if you want. But dandelions, clover, yes, for healing worlds. So, I am going to stop and give one more bonus shout out to an edible family that is super easy to identify, and it grows wild where I live. These are, of course, the well-known wild onions, wild garlic, whatever in the world you want to call them. Everybody knows about them. They grow at like 100 times the rate of anything else, and smell, definitely, of onions and garlic, and taste. And that is how you identify the onion and garlic family, is by the smell. Now, unfortunately, I'm not in a place where I have lots of wild onion and garlics growing around. So I am taking you to the garden, even though it's kind of overgrown at this end, and therefore kind of acts as wild, because it does grow wild. And these are the wild actual onions and garlics. It's easy to identify wild and onion garlics as bulbs because they smell. If it smells like onions and garlics, you know it's edible, because it's an onion and garlic family and they're all edible. And so, it may not be the best, wild vegetable for eating large quantities of, but it's great for that bite of flavor. And, depending, you can eat a fair amount. So, locust beans, those are my random rambling thoughts on edible foods, edible wild plants. You can mention in your books to evoke certain settings. It's by no means an exhaustive list, because that would be about as thick as the book I showed you earlier. But it is something you may want to consider if you think that it's something you want to consider. I know not everybody considers that level of world building to be something they're interested in, or even something that's necessary, and I totally understand. But if you're gonna be mentioning real plants by name, I think a bit of research should be done to ensure that you're getting the right idea across, not that you're saying, oh yeah, no, it's actually quite a nice place to live. There's just some plants you have to be wary of. So, do the YouTube things, and I hope you enjoy.